Craig Adams here from weddingfilmschool.com, and this is 10 hours of editing a wedding film condensed as much as I could. So starting the edit, I import, organize my footage, transcode it so it's easier to edit, and then I begin setting in and out points with all the clips. I go through each one so that way I know what the clips are, and I have no mess ups, no movement, and all the clips are set in and out. So now I have all of my raw footage in one sequence in order, so now I can start cutting the multi-cam sections like the ceremony first look. I sync all the footage, I line up and fix all the audio, and then I cut it up so that it makes the best sense and clean it up as much as possible. I do the same with the ceremony. It definitely takes longer because there are more angles and just a lot more footage to go through. And lastly, I do the same with the speeches. And these three are usually the multi-cam sequences that take the most, but there might be a couple other toasts or speeches or dances that you have to sync up and cut. Next, I'll import all the song files for the edit, think about where they would fit best and what I can use. So now I'll make a duplicate of this raw footage sequence so that I have two versions. So now I can edit down this second copy into my highlight film without destroying all of the work that I did for the raw footage, because I'm going to make a doc edit with that later. And I'm ready to start making the highlight film now that I have all of this footage in order and cut in and out points and all the multi-cam footage sequenced, synced, everything's ready to go. I'll go through all of the dialogue sections, so that could be the first look, the toasts, anything where people are talking, and mark the good points with little markers, and think about where I could use them in the highlight film. It usually takes a lot longer to get started, so you really have to find and think of a way to start your film and setting the mood, and it definitely takes longer to get into the edit. So at this point I start editing the wedding. It's a lot of work. It usually takes about an hour per minute, sometimes a little more, so like an hour to an hour and a half per minute of wedding film. I don't really, I edit the audio, I'll do a little bit of color correction and composing, but I'm really just going for the rough cut, what content goes where and how. Okay, so I placed that last clip, and then I've got my rough cut. I've got pretty much the bulk of my edit wedding film done. I'd say 90%, and just looking at it now, it's it looks like a lot of work, so I try to organize it and clean it and move on to the next step. So at this point I just play through the wedding film over and over again, going through waves and attack different sections. I'll start with the audio. I'll fix all the cross fades, the in and out points. I'll try to sweeten and normalize the audio so that it sounds good level wise, and just make sure everything sounds great. Then I'll go through composition wise and make sure that it looks good as far as the placement within the letterboxing. Make sure if I'm going to do any keyframing, push-ins, outs, pans, all of those are done, and everything looks good as far as the rule of thirds and whatnot. And then lastly, I will go through and do a color correction and grade, usually at the same time. I'll fix the exposure, I'll fix the color, and then I'll add whatever kind of grade I'm making for this wedding film. And sometimes I have titles in my film, so I'll jump over to Photoshop or Illustrator. I'll make these titles whatever I need. I'll export those out of Photoshop and then bring them back into the edit. So at this point, I've got everything done. I will definitely go through it one or two more times just to make sure that it sounds good. If there's anything that kind of, doesn't feel right, I'm going to make those changes, because, it's these little changes at the end that really push the wedding film, into close to perfection, because no wedding film is perfect, but I want it to be as good as possible. And why not take that extra 10 minutes, 20 minutes to just make sure everything is perfect. So at this point, all I have to do is just export, and I've got the wedding film done. So let me know if this process is a bit different. I'm always changing the way I'm doing things, but this is a basic outline of how I do 10 hours of editing. So hopefully this is great. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know below. But until then, thank you for watching, and see you.